plan. The Guilford School District is an entity unto itself. A multi-district SAU, where there are two districts, when you were in with Laconia, under SAU 73, I believe it was, right? So when you were part of, no, you were, excuse me, that's correct, SAU 30, sorry, I don't want to get the numbers wrong. When you were part of SAU 30, before SAU 73 was created, and any other multi-district SAU, is a separate legal entity. It has its own identity, and it's operated under the terms of RSA 194C. What was approved by the State Department of Education in 1998 was the authority, was a plan to withdraw from SAU 30 so that SAU 73 could be created. Then you were off on your own. They give you a number, which is an administrative structure, but you're your own district. The board becomes the exclusive governing body over the entire operations of the school district once that's done. And it continues on until that structure is changed. You're correct. If there was a reorganization of the district, it could join another district, for example. And you could combine SAU services at some point in time if there was a vote in the future to do that. There are all sorts of options to do those sorts of reorganizations. And if that plan is submitted and approved by voters, then that would create, of both districts, it would create a new administrative structure because of the fact that there'd then be two districts that were involved. But right now, as a separate SAU and a single district SAU, as I indicated before, this board is the governing board of the district. You folks at the district meeting are the legislative board body that makes a determination about how much money is appropriated. Once that money is appropriated, these folks have the authority to expend that money in accordance with state law.
Sir, you just spent 5 minutes explaining the difference between a single district SAU. We all understand that. My point is we were not an SAU in 97, 98 when we went through this process. In fact, we did not get issued a SAU, I believe it wasn't until June of 98. So you did have to live by the chapters. And yes, the school board, the State Board of Education did not just approve the withdrawal from Laconia. They approved the plan for the new district. The plan included how they were going to administer 194C4, superintendent services. That plan's changed. It was never resubmitted to the state. That plan, in essence, is the constitution of this SAU.
Very clearly, that is absolutely incorrect. You're making conclusions that are not based in law. And I'm sorry.
What's RSA 194C5-2 say? Do you know it?
The point is, it's not a constitution. It's not a charter. This isn't a charter. It isn't that sort of an entity. You don't have a charter. You are a single district SAU. The only law that applies to this district as an SAU is that it's 194C3. The entire rest of the statute does not apply. So I'm just, we're going to disagree. I'm just
waiting for you to read me the law.
I did.
No, he did not read the law. He quoted a Supreme Court case from 1958. Since then, 1998, RSA 194 was written. I mean, come on.
I guess I'm trying to figure out, if I may just jump
go into litigation here.
Sir, I'd like you to come to a point. We can have an argument if you want to, and maybe not get something resolved. But there are other people to speak. The time is passing. I'd like you to draw this to some kind of a conclusion so that we can move on.
Let me leave with this comment. We're all trying to avoid litigation here. You haven't satisfied me yet. You haven't satisfied a lot of people. You haven't answered questions. You haven't read the law. I've read you the law. You haven't read me the law. Okay? Litigation's expensive to the district, the taxpayers. I don't want to do that. I don't want to pony up my own cash to do it. The only person in this room that litigation would actually benefit is your attorney, who's giving you advice. Thank you.
I just want to add one other
Oh,
thing.
opinions, rather.
If the state Department of Education thought that the SAU 73 was not being administered adequately, or we were in violation of the plan proposed in 1997, I'm sure they would have notified us of that. Instead, we got the letter that has been posted on the district website that says, state law, RSA 194-C:4 stipulates that each school administrative unit or a single school district shall provide superintendent services. Further, RSA 189:24 describes a standard school as being directed and supervised by a principal and a superintendent, each of whom shall hold valid educational credentials issued by the State Board of Education. The only exception is for small school administrative units with 400 or fewer total school age enrollments and with no more than 2 public schools.
Sir, you're reading a law that describes the definition of a
Sir,
school.
I think you've relieved yourself of the opportunity to speak. You sat down. We're done.
I'm just going to read you one other law, because you were asking for laws to be read to you. I read 194C3, I'll read it again. Single school district SAU shall be considered the same as a single school district and shall be exempt from meeting the requirements of this chapter, except that they shall provide superintendent services provided pursuant to RSA 194C4. The other law is ED 302.01, which requires the administrative and leadership services to be defined and directed by the governing body employing the superintendent. That's a state regulation promulgated by the Department of Education that has the force of law. And that's what we're saying. I told you, I did it shorthand before, but you wanted me to quote law. I'm now quoting law. So I'm not trying to obfuscate anything or make it more difficult, but that's the regulation. I've read the Supreme Court decision, I've read the statute, and I've read the regulation.
Sir.
Bob Brent, 49 K Road. I have a youngster in school, as I mentioned before, and I just wanted to thank anybody that doesn't have a child in the school that's helping me pay, because I found out that I'm not paying my fair share. So thank you very much. I just hope that when you renegotiate the teacher's contract that you'll understand that it's really tough for a lot of people to pay their tax bill. I'm included in that group. I'm going to have to write a check shortly, which I could use for winter oil next year, for countless other things. And I'm not paying my fair share, but I just hope you're cognizant of the fact that there's a lot of people struggling. So negotiate and think about people that are having a tough time, please. My final point is there any document, warrant article that would satisfy you guys, that the voters voted on in this, could you help us draft something that you would be satisfied with? Like if the voters said no to the superintendent, you helped us draft it. Is there such a document?
This school board and every other school board since 1998 and the Gilmanton school boards have been unanimous in stating that we need a superintendent to effectively run the school district.
So we couldn't team up and come up with some document that's unambiguous and put it towards, let the will of the voters be heard. We can't come up with a document because you're steadfastly saying, and you're looking out.
Like every other school district in the state, there are no other school districts in the state of this size that do not have a superintendent.
And that's your opinion, and you're elected, sir.
It's not an opinion,
No,
it's a fact.
but okay, fine. However you see it, you guys have your opinion, and it's based on facts as you see them. Okay, I'm just looking at a budget that's ballooning. I was on the school board or the budget committee for a number of years, and I passed a lot of the budgets. And I think we should be looking at cutting things because people are struggling. I don't know, it doesn't seem like anywhere in this country that people get that. When it comes to federal, state, local employees. Not that services aren't needed, because they are. I got a kid in school. I think the school does a great job, but I'd like to look at saving things, you know? That's it.
Thank you very much. Sir?
Yeah.
Sorry if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say, Bob, again, every budget we look at, every year we look at, if there's personnel that we don't feel is needed, we certainly would do that. I think we've proven that in the past. And I hate to keep bringing up the elementary school issue because there's still some scars that haven't healed from some of that, from some friendships lost based on being different sides of the discussion. We look at that, Bob. Certainly we're listening to what you're saying and we understand and we can hear what you're saying about budget cuts and agree with the negotiation with the teachers. I'm sure that we'll keep that in mind.
And I don't know that that I used my 5 minutes yet, sir.
You probably used about 10, but if you got one more comment, go
total
ahead.
maybe total.
That'd be nice.
But you know, one last thing, and I'll leave you alone. I think that you guys are telling me, or at least it seems this way, that we can't draft a document that we could put in front of the voters, that they could vote on, that would satisfy you and not be advisory. Is that correct? So litigation's the only option?
Sir?
Did you want to say something? My name is Mark Wright. I live on 42 Hazelnut Road in Guilford. I've been a psychologist and school psychologist for 40 years. I'm now retired. I've worked in a lot of schools with school-aged children and their families. It has been said here tonight that even though our population has gone down in the school, the budget has increased. And I say to you, the population in my house has gone down, but my cost of living continues to go up. I'm on a fixed income, but that's just the cost of life. Have you noticed the fuel bills lately? Does it cost any less to heat this building because there's fewer children? I think people start thinking that they have more authority than they are given when they're on a committee. They have the right to recommend a certain amount of money to be spent by our school district. We elected these people to run the school district. With the help of the administrators, they've been doing a good job. They put 3 of my sons through. And by the way, there's a lot more than just achievement test scores that qualify a school to be a good school. We are doing well in most of our achievements, but I want to say this is really important. There's a whole lot more than achievement scores in what our children are learning. They are not just learning the 3 R's. Reading, writing, and arithmetic is important, but it is not inclusive of music, gym, drama, all the other activities that are paid for by our tax dollars. The sports, more and more we have been paying for more sports. Well, that comes out of that same budget. We are providing more than the 3 R's. We cannot continue to do a good job of all of these extracurricular activities and adjunct services with a minimal budget. My wife has been a teacher in this school for over 20 years. I know of what I speak. I've worked in schools for 40 years. Do you think that schools can run on the same budget that they started 40 years ago? I'm sorry that schools are as complex as they are, but they are. And they cost a lot of money to do it right. If people want to sit by and whine and moan about the fact that they have limited power to control the whole school district because of the recommendation, I'm sorry for them. These are the people who have the expertise to run the school district. You've given them, we have given them the power to do that. You have given your recommendations on the budget committee. You have told us what you think. That's as far as it goes. You don't have any more power than that. Back off.
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Barbara Eichinger, 558 Edgewater Drive. I think the issue with the superintendent was the vote. The warrant article was an attempt by the voters to send a message that the administrative staff of the SAU could be flattened a bit. Similar to what we do in the private sector when the times are bad, the economy's bad, and the revenue's down, we flatten our staff, you know, we get rid of middle management or some upper management. I mean, it sounds from the figures that Skip was saying is that you have a fairly large administrative staff that's very well paid. And I think the reality of the situation is that the assessments are dropping here in the town, and that the reality may be that the town of Guilford can no longer afford the SAU that it has built. Now, the SAU is probably one of the largest employers here in the town of Guilford, and I'll quote some statistics from the state of New Hampshire. In the town of Guilford, the total private industry average employment dropped by 1%, but the government average employment increased by 17%. The average weekly wage of the public sector increased by 43% and is now 6.2% higher than the private sector average wage. And
What
these numbers,
period of time are you talking about?
these are from 1999 to 2009, and the source is the New Hampshire government website, the Guilford, New Hampshire profile. So what we're seeing here in the town of Guilford, and this is not unusual what we're seeing all over the state of New Hampshire. If you looked at the Sunday news, they talked about the average public worker in the state of New Hampshire now earns more than the average private sector worker. So we're seeing that all over the state of New Hampshire. Guilford is no different. Now, you know, those of you who study economics have to understand that the private sector must be on the top of the food chain, the economic food chain that is, because the money originates with the private sector. So when you have the public sector pay higher than the private sector, you have an inherent problem. And that's where we're going, and that's in fact where we are at. So this little micro vote here of this little superintendent was really a small attempt by the voters to flatten the SAU administrative staff, because we can see this trend. The public sector has grown too large for the taxpayers here in the town of Guilford. And this is reality, and it's a reality that you're going to have to face. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Terry Stewart, across the road, across the name Guilford. Just to reiterate my earlier point, this isn't about the superintendent. And I guess, Bob, if you're still in the building, no, you probably can't collaborate to come up with a warrant article because, and the same answer for Kevin is you may be right, you may win this battle, and you may call it a constitution, because I kind of agree with that. I think that would be, you know, it's a little misleading argument here, but at the end of the day, the ruling authority, case law is going to say these guys make the decisions. If you don't like it, vote for somebody else. I mean, that's the remedy. It's the only remedy. And there may be cause to do that. And this isn't about the superintendent. And I hate to hear the word cheapen the education. I'm the last person in the room that wants to see that happen. And my comments were confined to the business end all through the budget committee process. And I really enjoy the fact that I don't have to do the disclaimer because I'm no longer a budget committee member. But I can tell you that having sat through the budget committee process with the principals, and if Peter's still in the building, the assistant principal, I'm sorry, I've met with you guys are great guys. But if my employer asked me if I had another duty to do, I would say no, like most people. So that's why I'm saying, at a minimum, an independent audit would be really a good idea to see if the administrative end of the business needs to be downsized. There wasn't any problem with the administration downsizing the teacher side of the equation painfully, as Paul added, a couple of years ago when the noted decrease in students occurred. So that same due diligence needs to occur on the administrative side of things. I've been in management for a long time. to me, that can happen. And you can have your superintendent. I think that might be fine. It certainly is a comfort level for everybody in the room, but figure out a way to maybe consolidate these two services, not you guys personally, but the jobs you do. So I just find it hard to believe that, you know, a school of education is being told by the school board that administrates it that we're going to do business the way we've always done it. That just doesn't sound like forward thinking to me. And I also find it interesting that the same individuals that have spoken, a couple of them, would have, in the past, have been very blatant about saying that budget committees members, elected officials like your elected officials, and I've been the brunt of this comment, are just a bunch of dopes that were elected, and what do we know about budgets and schools and things of that nature? Well, I probably have some of the same credentials as many of you on your board. You're not experts in education. You're a board of elected people by us to administer the school, and you rely on these guys to tell you what makes sense. So I really get disturbed when I hear that, you know, you guys have this all, you know, education thing, and I just point that out, not for your sake, but for some of the people that are saying it. We have a bunch of elected officials in this town that do scrutinizing of budgets. They all bring different talents. That's the process. I must say that the school budget process, to me, I'm familiar with expense accounts and the old adage, find the hat in the expense account, and that's what dealing with your budget was like. It really is hard to find a hat in that budget sometimes, but it is there. There were a lot of excellent questions here that were asked, and that is, can some of the administrators fit some more into their day? I suggest that that be looked into. Thank you. And I appreciate the venue, by the way.
If I can make one comment there. You talked about administrative downsides. The assistant principal at the elementary school was cut 2 years ago, which is an administrative position, so.
Yes, I agree that that's excellent. There's more that can be done. I mean,
your comment was that we hadn't done any administrative downsizing. We have done some.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are we done? The board has prepared a handout that you should look for on your way out the door. Thank you very much for your comments, for your participation, for your dialogue. Much appreciated.